This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in today's episode, this was definitely an episode where I just said, we may not have an episode on Tuesday because I don't know what to talk about, and I came up with this idea. I may have done this before, but sort of an update on it, is being single in Las Vegas. Not traveling to Vegas solo, we already did that episode last week, but what's it like to date in Las Vegas? Because I thought it was just bad from my own personal experience, but actually looking at a past article that was just written a couple days ago, is that Vegas ranks as the worst city out of 100 to be single in the United States. Ranked out of 100 cities, and we are the worst. Well, I believe Henderson is actually the worst, which is, funny enough, where I live. So that's kind of funny that I am in the single worst place to actually live, to be single. So I know maybe it's just not me. But really, I want to kind of shed light on this and kind of explain maybe from just my personal anecdotes of living in the city and, being, single. And it might be interesting to you guys. So this is definitely a more personal view. I wouldn't say this is going to be a lot of recommendations on where to find people, but maybe it will be, maybe as we talk about this throughout the episode. But we're going to go into it, diving into what it's like to date in Las Vegas. Also, guys, it is one of the windiest days I've ever been in Las Vegas, ever. Although I don't live in a house because I don't have a jumping thing. But those, when they start flying, that's when you start rating how windy it is. But it's pretty windy here. And I just found out that one of my windows was slightly open, that I didn't close it. And that's what was blowing air in here and was whistling the entire whole day. But besides the point, let's get into dating in Las Vegas and what it's like. So the thing is that my generation, I'm 33 years old, which my generation is the one that came up with dating apps. And that's sort of the number one way that a lot of people meet other people in Las Vegas, or in the world, I would say. But I'm finding that a lot of people are seeing that this is the reason, or this is one of the reasons Vegas is one of the harder places to find somebody to date, is because we actually have a lot of tourists that come into town, which is true. And I think it's I think it's sort of one of those things where they get to pick and choose. This is very anecdotal, but you can find people that aren't, actually tourists. You just have to read a little bit, but most people don't. And a lot of people are just swiping left and right. A lot of times it's just a picture that comes up and you swipe left or swipe right. And it's funny because I actually don't have a lot of success on dating apps in Las Vegas, but whenever I go to California for 3 or 4 days, I match with a lot more people out there. It's so crazy, which is actually also frustrating that this always happens. It's so annoying. So maybe you guys out in California, you guys just have it. People are way cooler out there. I don't know. But other than that, I do think that this is more of a generational thing, not a Las Vegas thing, is the dating apps and that kind of thing. But I do think that Vegas being a place that is much more, not transparent, it's much more transient, where you get a lot of people coming in and out that aren't originally from the city. And they're moving here, maybe alone, maybe with a partner. That's obviously wouldn't work for our topic today, but a lot of people move out here for work, especially in the hospitality industry. Especially for me being a guy, there's a lot of women that move here from places like Massachusetts, places like New York. I remember when I was concierging, I was at the Encore Beach Club, and one of the cocktail waitresses said she came all the way from Vermont to actually come and be a cocktail waitress in Las Vegas. So a lot of people are making giant moves into these spaces or into this place where they aren't with groups of people or friends they've had for a long time. My middle brother has friends he's known since elementary school, and they're still friends to this day, and they go on vacations together. And a lot of times you meet people through these friend groups. And the thing is that a lot of my friend groups have moved. I moved away from Tucson, where I had a lot of my friends, and then I made a lot of friends in college. A lot of them were from California, and they ended up moving back to California. So what happens is that I kind of just, for me personally, got stuck in this thing where I just would find new friends, and then those friends would move away. And I have to say, as I've gotten older, I'm really bad at keeping friendships because I am very much a solo person. I get that a lot from like my dad and his like sort of philosophy on going out to bars is that like for if he wants to go out to a bar or whatever, my mom likes to stay home and my dad will go out to bars by himself to watch, football games or whatever. And he has friends at those bars, which similarly to me, that's kind of how I figured that's kind of how I am. I have lots of friends who are bartenders and cocktail waitresses. But that's like kind of where our friendship like ends is there. So it is one of those things where I think it does sort of go down to sort of how you grow up, obviously, and then obviously your friend group. I think that is probably the best way to meet people in Las Vegas is through other friends, which I wish happened a lot more. But a lot of times, this is very common in this city, is that you end up dating people who work in very similar industries as you, which I know this might be common in other cities, but I don't think it is. But in Vegas, it is extremely common to date somebody who's in your same department, in your same industry, because of the hours that you work. We are a 24-hour city, meaning that we do have different shifts and different industries. One specifically that I want to use as an example is the nightlife industry. I've never worked in the nightlife industry, but I have lots of friends who have, and you find that a lot of them are nightclub hosts, and you find that they do not typically date outside of the nightlife industry. A lot of it has to do with the crazy hours that they work. They usually work, if they're not doing like a day life experience or a day club experience, they typically work from like 7 p.m. until like 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's a very weird shift to have to work. And where are you going to meet people other than people who work at those same times? And a lot of the ones who also do day life experiences, day club experiences, are similar. And that's the same thing with the cocktail waitresses that work at those nightclubs. So that's where you end up finding a lot of hosts end up dating cocktail servers, bottle service girls, because it's just a natural place for them to meet other people. And they have very similar experiences and stories. And that's really where you offload what you're going through is to people that can understand it. A lot of people aren't going to have empathy for a girl who's working as a bottle service girl, whom, in one night can make, a couple $1,000s from, specific tables and still like be tired, which honestly, I think it's also kind of annoying, but they say, oh, I'm so tired. Like, it's just, I've been up all crazy because I've been working, the day shifts for the day clubs and then I go work the nightclubs and I am like super tired, but like somebody might look at it and say, oh, but you're making X amount of dollars. And I feel like people in the nightlife industry are able to understand that more rather than somebody who works, a 9 to 5 that is like, well, it's really just getting paid to look pretty and party. That's the thing, is that there is no connection of like what goes into all that. So it's very interesting just to look at it that way, that you date a lot of people like in your industry. I know some people that like, I had friends who were concierge who end up dating, which is kind of an interesting sort of place to start, is that they ended up dating. First, they would start to date other concierges. And then they figured out maybe not a good idea. And they've actually gone and dated people outside of their industry. And I think it is kind of interesting that is, a way to go, which concierging is closer to being like a regular day job than a lot of other jobs in this city. Because usually concierge work from like 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. We don't work overnights, so there's not that crazy like waiter, waitress sort of idea. A long time when I used to work at the high roller, the Ferris wheel, and people who work different shifts in other industries can totally attest to this, is that it is hard to make time for your person when you're working like completely different schedules and sometimes completely different days. Especially if you have children, like it's even more of like a situation. But like I would go to work at, let's just say, like 5 o'clock or 3 or 4 o'clock, whatever, something like that, and I would get off at like midnight. And then the person I was with, had a 9 to 5 job. You really only see each other like when you're about to go to sleep. And that's if you live together. And we didn't live together, obviously. But that was like a situation that would have to happen. So it's tough. It's definitely tough based on sort of like the times of day that do that. Why did I come up with this idea for this week? Well, it's because I actually met somebody. I met somebody at a bar, because you say, oh, like go meet people in local bars. I'm just gonna sort of confess to everybody. My type, I consider myself extremely smart, which I feel like everybody says that. But I would say definitely like an intellectual type. Like I love movies. If you guys ever follow me on Instagram, I would watch a lot of movies. I'm really interested in cocktails and whiskey, which is super, super interesting to me. And I also don't read a lot, but I have picked up reading one particular book for a specific reason. And it is interesting because there is a very specific person that I would like to date, and I would like to date somebody extremely smart. Kind of going back to sort of like somebody that I was dating that I met on a dating app. It was crazy. I was so excited. And this person was, quite successful in her career for sure. And I thought like really cool that she was like super financially stable, and I thought that was cool. Like I thought it was like super intellectual, very stable in like her job. And I thought that was really cool. And we ended up going out like 2, 3, 4 times. And it just wasn't like clicking. It was just like, nope, I feel like this is not a thing. And I have to say that it is really hard to date online because you can only talk, because this is the thing, a lot that you see online as well, is that women will say, hey, like I don't like to just text, I like to meet in person. Well, if you don't have enough information by the time you meet in person, you find out that, I don't know, maybe this is also the thing, is that like you'll meet somebody in person and like you went through a lot of work to meet that person in person, learn more about them, and feel like you've invested in this. So it's like, oh, like, that's one meetup. I'm one of those people that if I meet you in person once, I have to see you at least a second time, just to like figure it out, just sort of like gauge, like, do we have anything more to talk about? So that you're kind of investing in that much. The times that I've actually talked to somebody a lot, through text or, through these dating apps, is you kind of figure out like, oh, like we don't have that much in common. I don't think would hit it off, and you don't have to invest that time into it. So that's another thing. And another one that I think is kind of interesting is that I actually heard on a recent podcast because it was Valentine's Day. So they were doing like the same thing that I'm doing, is talking about the singles rate in Las Vegas. That like when you go on a first date, in Las Vegas, because it's so expensive, which is just a note that I want to get to, that one of these articles made, was that Vegas, the reason people do not date in this town, they stay single, is because it is so expensive to live here. And people are focused on, paying rent and paying bills, which is obviously a thing, but they don't want to spend money on dates. And I think that they were trying to be nice about this by saying, oh, well, there's these like other like cool like date ideas. And this is the thing, is that it felt super unrealistic, or just something that I don't think I'd want to do, which again, everybody on this podcast was in a relationship and I am not. So who knows, maybe something worked for them, but they were suggesting things like go for a walk, which is like, I don't know if I want to go for a walk with somebody. Like that just seems like, I don't know. It just seems like zero effort. And I feel like effort is very important when doing these dates. I've definitely toned down what I do on first dates, because if it was for somebody that I really, really was into, I would want to take them out to like really cool restaurants and sort of these interesting things. And I've very much scaled that back as I've gotten older, knowing that this is the situation. So I think there is a point to that, to not go over the top, especially in a city that has so many cool things to offer. So scaling it back, I think, is a good thing to think about. But like, I don't think I'm just going to take somebody for a walk, because that seems, I don't know, that seems kind of lame. Seems like no effort was put into that. But I think figuring out like what this person is into is a good way to attack that first date. So anyways, again, the reason I brought this up was that I was at a bar, and I was sitting at a bar that I've sat at before, and I ended up striking up a conversation with this person very organically, and then also this actually comes on the heels of like 2 weeks ago. I was talking to these women from New York. Shout out if you guys are listening. And they're both single from New York, and they really appreciated lots of like the old school ways of communication in terms of like getting somebody's phone number, using a business card, because I had one of my business cards for Concierge Confidential, and they're like, I love that, which is cool, because that was actually, so whenever you ever meet me out in the world, I usually carry on business cards, because whenever I'd want to show you like, hey, like this is what I do, Concierge Confidential, like go follow us. People don't want to do that inside of a hotel. Like they don't want to look at like your phone, like looking at Instagram. It feels like not as cool. And it's their time. And sometimes like your phone doesn't work inside of a hotel. So a good way to do it is give a business card. They'll take it with you, and then they'll look at it once they're picking up all their stuff out of their pockets. They'll look at it, check it out, follow it, and then boom. So that is why I carry business cards with me whenever I go out. There is a reason to the madness. It's old school, and people still like it, and they really enjoyed that. So I use kind of that tip of talking to them, which are they're very nice ladies, of that, like, don't ask for, because I always thought this was like sort of nice, was like, hey, like maybe I'll ask for their Instagram and not their phone number, because it feels less invasive. Because like a phone number feels like, hey, like I'm up in your business, and an Instagram is like a little bit more passive. And I find that women nowadays, again, this is like, prefer if you just ask them for their phone number. I feel like, I know this sounds like so stupid, but this is the world that we live in 2026, is that if you just go up, I watch a lot of these things. If you just go up to them and ask them for their phone number, after you've had a conversation and kind of figured out if you're vibing or not, they tend to be a little bit more, receptive to that, which I did all that and got a phone number, and I'm feeling really good about it. So the topic that I brought up was wine, which was cool because I love the conversations around wine. I even talked to some guy about wine like a week or two ago, and made me more interested. So I had a little bit of knowledge backed into that. And again, I know a lot about little. I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, and it worked. So hopefully that goes well. That'll be fun. But that is why I'm reading a book about wine, because I want to know more. And now I'm like locked in. Now I really want to know about this, just like for personal reasons. So I think that was good. But the reason I came up with this episode. But the thing is that good places to meet singles in Vegas are really hard to come by. And a couple of good places, depending on what you're looking for. I think it also depends, on your age and that kind of thing. And also kind of like the groups that you want to roll with. Like a lot of people who have lots of friends love to go to Durango. Like Durango is like hardcore or low key, the like nightlife off-duty meetup spot, but for like very small groups. I wouldn't recommend go there, like especially in my age range. Like this is a place where my age range of people like to go hang out at, but I don't, because it feels like more groups than like singles like to go there, which is very intimidating. If you're a single person going into a place that has like, groups of singles that are like there as a group together, like for fun, it's very hard to sort of insert yourself into those groups or hang at those bars. Like the Bel Air Lounge at Durango is where you find lots of people my age and sort of like my demographic, and I just don't want to go there. It's just like the energy like doesn't meet like what I'm there for. I like kind of being the regular at the bar, and I'm not there, so maybe another reason why I don't go. And I also like to have a good cocktail. And I don't think they make that good cocktails there. But that's just, personal. But I think if you're between 25 and 35, I think Durango is the spot for you. I think that's a great place to meet locals who are definitely like more like nightclub vibe that are not on duty. I think that's where you want to go. I kind of like the Arts District right now. Like, I really enjoy Main Street, like Nocturno, the Doberman. I also really enjoy going down Main Street, like Velveteen Rabbit. I haven't tried Twisted Sisters yet. It seems very interesting. The new Viking Mike's Yurt Bar is really, really cool. I found there were lots of couples there, and the same thing with Nocturno. Nocturno is definitely my vibe because that has a lot of off-duty like bartenders and cocktail waitresses, and that's sort of like what I'm into. Like, I find like the reason that I really, really like bartenders is because they tend to be very well versed in lots of things and really know how to deal with people, and they're really good at cutting through bullshit. I think that is a great trait that bartenders have. Male and female, but we're talking about, dating right now. So female. They're really good at, listening, obviously, because that's their job. But they're also really good about cutting through shit, which I really like. So that's also, they're just very assertive, which is what I'm into that. But yeah, also just like the knowledge thing is cool. But I also like fancy shit. So it ends up becoming one of those things where I like people who are, especially when you go to places like, Delilah's and, what I'm looking for, like Mayfair Supper Club, these kind of places, they have to understand those parts of hospitality, which I found very interesting. So that's really cool. I don't do a lot of health stuff. So like the thing is that I feel like a lot of really hot people meet each other at the gym. You find a lot of women who work on the Strip. The only thing they do, literally the only thing they do, and this is, from far away, is that they work, sleep, and go to the gym. That is like all the single women in my demographic from 25 to 35. That is all they do is work, gym, sleep. That is it. And like every once in a while, they'll go out to like a crazy concert. I'm definitely past the nightclubbing days because that was a thing long, long time ago, but definitely not nightclubbing like I used to, but I love to still go out. I would say if you're somebody who is on, maybe the older side, sorry for saying older, I would say the more mature side. So somebody who's in like their 40s, I think Red Rock Casino is actually a really good place for that. Like the Rouge Room, you find lots of single people there. A little bit more happening. I think those are the places to meet, more mature adults. Places. I mean, you can also try places like Circa. You tend to find lots of people at the Legacy Club. And then if you are somebody, it's just you find a lot of them at Sunset Station. They have lots of like the cool round bars. I feel like that's where you find a lot of those people. And again, I'm not into that age range yet. So maybe like find people other places. Like, I don't know, like I don't drink coffee, so I don't go to coffee shops. And that's like the number one thing that everybody loves to recommend is coffee shop dates. And I do not like coffee. Will I go to a coffee shop for a date? Sure. I could figure out how to drink tea, but like everybody loves to recommend coffee shop dates, which is like, God damn, it's just like, it's the most boring thing you can honestly come up with. Anyways, other things that like people love to do, like people love hiking. Like, how do you meet somebody on a hike? I don't get it. Like, how do you meet somebody going hiking? It's so weird. And then what's the other thing that's going on? I just like bars, man. Like, it's not because like I like hanging out and just drinking all the time. It's fun, but I just find like I like the vibes at bars. So that's usually where I end up hanging out. So if they had a movie club, I'd go to a movie club because I love movies, man. But it's crazy. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard on these streets, guys. It's hard out on these streets. I don't know what to say. We're still looking. If you're single, hit me up. Say what's up. I don't know why I just said that. But anyways, this was like a little a little like, what do you call it? It's sort of like a peek into my mind, I guess. But this was definitely a much more interesting episode, I think. Hopefully that filled the void. I know it was a lot of like, it's just hard, man. Like overall, it is just hard to date in Las Vegas. People have different schedules. People are working on different things, lots of side gigs. It's very expensive. So singles who live in Las Vegas, it can be tough because you're always working, but I don't think that's an excuse. A lot of people like go Dutch nowadays. Like I kind of don't. I was on a date with this person who was, financially secure, and like they were like, please let me like buy half of this. And it was just like a weird thing to my brain. So I don't know. It's just very interesting. And then you have women who are on the other end who are like, I'm not paying for anything. So it's very difficult, I have to say. And then also people are always moving in and out of town. I think that's very interesting. It's very tough. Like I think people are very like insecure living in Las Vegas because they don't know if they're going to be staying here, leaving, moving on, doing whatever. And then, always moving to LA because that's where you go from Vegas to there. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully that was an insightful episode. Don't know. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Leave me like responses whether you liked it or not. I know it wasn't like giving out recommendations, but kind of just a personal thought of living single in Las Vegas. So hopefully you guys have a great time if you come to Vegas this week. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have something fun coming up later in the week. Maybe we'll do one of those fun like rating episodes or something like that. So make sure you give us a follow on ConcertsConfidential_LV on Instagram or at Keys to Vegas on TikTok. Really, really appreciate it. So thanks again. If I see you out in town, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.